Welcome to our second Abhidhamma class in our second series of Abhidhamma lessons, introducing you to the Abhidhamma as taught by the Buddha. Our esteemed teacher is Most Venerable Bulwala Ratanasiri Thero of Amillava Dharma Vijayarama Temple in Sri Lanka. So it is time to start our second class. Over to you, Reverend Sir.
Can I hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Reverence, all right. Okay, we can see you as well. Yes, go ahead.
Stop video. How can I? Good afternoon. Let's start our second Abhidhamma class. Today, I am going to discuss with you about the four ultimate realities. The first four ultimate reality is consciousness. You know, there are four ultimate realities which includes all Abhidhamma facts. Consciousness, mental factor, matter, and Nibbana. Chitta, Chaitasika, Rupa, Nibbana. All Abhidhamma facts have been included in these four ultimate realities. Before that, let's consider why we learn Abhidhamma. What is the purpose of learning Abhidhamma? The purpose of learning Abhidhamma is to achieve Nibbana. In the fourfold ultimate realities, Buddha has described the way towards Nibbana. What is the way towards Nibbana? Is the middle pathway. Middle pathway can be known as T6. It must be practiced. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. In Abhidhamma, Buddha has analyzed and Buddha has penetrated Tilakkhana towards Nibbana. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So Buddha wanted to explain how to achieve Nibbana. To achieve Nibbana, first he must develop his morality, sila. In ultimate reality, consciousness. Under ultimate reality consciousness, Buddha has explained how to develop morality, sila. Buddha has analyze the term sila under consciousness, he has explained clearly how to practice sila morality. In other words, in Abhidhamma, describing the way towards Nibbana, the Tilakkana, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, Buddha has explained his doctrines as karma and meditation, samatha and vipassana. In ultimate reality of consciousness, we can see how to develop morality and how to understand the doctrine of karma, and also how to practice meditation, especially samatha bhavana under consciousness. He has explained how to explain samatha bhavana. Buddha has analyzed the characteristic of meditation and also the karma, and he has explained about karma and rebirth also in Abhidhamma. So learning Abhidhamma is understanding Buddhism clearly. So we'll try to understand Abhidhamma. In my former lesson, I introduced you textbooks and the commentaries, in Dhamma Sangani, there is descriptions about consciousness. Do you know the 7 textbook of Abhidhamma? Can you remember? First one is Dhamma Sangani. Second one, Vibhanga Sangani. Third one, Uddala Panyati, Dhatu Kata, Katavat Upakarana, Yamaka Prakarana, and Patthana Prakarana. Those are the 7 textbooks of Abhidhamma. To this 7 textbook, there are 3 commentaries to describe all those facts in detail. Atta Salini, Sambodhya, Vinodini, and Panchapadipakarana. Those are the commentaries written by Acharya Buddhaghosa. Dhamma Sangani is the important textbook of Abhidhamma. It can be known as the gateway of Abhidhamma. It is very important, Dhamma Sangani. In Dhamma Sangani, there are 5 sections, topics. Martika, first one. In Dhamma Sangani, Buddha has given guidelines to understand Abhidhamma and also the doctrines in suttas also. Martika is there. Kusala, Akusala, Avyakruta. Sukha, Dukkha, Adukkha, Masukha. In that way, under Matrika, they have given guidelines to study Abhidhamma, Kusala, Akusala, and Avyakruta. They connect with Kamma also. They connect with consciousness. So Matrika, its guidelines is very important. Then Kittupa Khanda. Kittupa Khanda, it has been described about consciousness, wholesome, unwholesome, and functional, like that. There is descriptions about consciousness. Then Rupa Khanda, it has given the description of matter, aggregate of matter, Rupa Khanda. Then Nikkepa Khanda and Atta Khanda, also descriptions there about Nibbana and other facts that contained in Abhidhamma, Dhamma Sangani. Today, we'll try to discuss about the ultimate reality, consciousness. Ultimate reality, consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is the mind of the person. You know, if we take a person, a being, we can see the important main two sections, mental section and physical section. And they are known as Nama and Rupa. Nama is mind, Rupa is the physical section, the visible section of the being. Nama Rupa means the five aggregates. Again, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana is Nama. Then Rupa, Rupa Skanda is Rupa, physical section of the person. In ultimate reality, consciousness, in Abhidhamma, we discuss about this Nama section. That means Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. When mind comes into actions, in Abhidhamma, it is known as consciousness. First of all, we have to understand the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is not a visible one. It is invisible. We know we have consciousness. Now, suppose about the dead body. Dead body, it has 5 organs, but it does not act or it does not respond with the objects of outsides. because there is no consciousness. So dead body, it doesn't have consciousness, but the person who lives, he has consciousness. We can't see the consciousness, but Buddha has explained the nature of consciousness. So we have to understand the Buddha's descriptions about consciousness. Consciousness, it is not a soul or the permanent thing. In India, the other religions like Vedic religions, Upanishad, they believe that person has soul, Atman, permanent Atman. That is the life of the person. The Buddha did not say about Atman. He explained about the consciousness. Consciousness is not a permanent soul. It is like a flowing river. It is ever going, a flowing river. It's a stream of consciousness. Mind is a stream of consciousness. It generates consciousness. It responds with objects, and it disappeared and again arises another consciousness. But there is no intermediate time. There arises one consciousness, it dies, and again arises another consciousness. It's just like a chain. And in chain, there are so many links interconnected. In that way, there is a stream of consciousness through our body. That is the life of our body. The first consciousness is known as Patisandhi Chitta. In the stream of consciousness, the first consciousness is known as Patisandhi Chitta. Then Patisandhi Chitta starts the stream of consciousness of the being, and it continues as a stream of consciousness having objects and responding with objects. Then one day, the person, when person dies, there appears his last consciousness. It is known as Tuti Chitta, the last consciousness. Between Tuti Chitta and Patisandhi Chitta, that consciousness is known as Bhavanga Chitta. Bhavanga. So Bhavanga consciousness that live with the person, it takes so many objects, responses with objects. having one object and response it, and again it goes to other objects through the five faculties. That it does bhavanga chitta. So that is the nature of consciousness. You may think, what is the start or the origin of this consciousness? Buddha said, "Anamataggo yang sansaru pubbhi kotina panyaya." Buddha said, in this circle of birth, now the consciousness, it engaged in this circle of birth. Buddha said, Pubbha kotina panyayati. The starting point can't be seen. If anyone who tried to find the start point of this mind, he can't do it, the Buddha said. So we must avoid all those metaphysical questions, and we have to understand the real happenings in the world. In that is the nature of consciousness. Then after Tritichitta, this consciousness goes to other world, and their form figure as other being in that way. And there are so many kinds of beings, like Brahmas, gods, animals, human beings. They have separate worlds or universe. Consciousness, now think of the function of the consciousness. Suppose a human being, he lives as a human being, then he perform karma, wholesome activities and unwholesome activities. Then it comes the end of his life. There appears his Tritichitta. Then he dies with his Tritichitta, and again he does not stop his continuing the stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness continue in other world, starting with the Patisandhi Chitta. Between Patisandhi Chitta and Triti Chitta, there is no intermediate time. Some doctrines, like Sarvastavadi in Abhidhamma, they explain Antarabhava, the intermediate existence about between Triti Chitta and Patisandhi Chitta. But in Theravada Abhidhamma, it does not describe such an intermediate existence or Antarabhava. Immediately after Triti Chitta, there appears Patisandhi Chitta according to his karma. In other world, there is no intermediate time. It just happened. Then that consciousness then continues as a new being, Brahma or God or anyone. And again, he performed karma, and he comes to the end of his life, and he there appears his Krutijit, and again he dies, and he has Pratisandhichitta again. In that way, he goes on in the circle of birth that is called samsara. Now, that is the function of consciousness. Consciousness, it is ever going, flowing from this world to other world, this being to other being. Like that, it is ever going process, but it's not a permanent thing. It's not a soul. It is changing. Ever going, changing is there. There is no permanent thing, permanent soul in consciousness. So that is the nature of consciousness. The Buddhism hope to seize the function of this consciousness. Now, when people dies, he is born somewhere there because of his consciousness. Buddha explained to seize the traveling in this circle of birth, we have to seize the function of this consciousness. So we have to manipulate this consciousness as we want. To manipulate this consciousness, we practice meditation, samatha bhavana and vipassana bhavana, tranquility and insight. In that way, we manipulate our consciousness. We can't manipulate easily our consciousness. So we, by attaining Nibbana, we seize the function of this consciousness. So in ultimate reality, consciousness, Buddha has explained under this ultimate reality about his doctrine of karma and meditation also, and developing morality and concentration. Now, consciousness, chitta, the ultimate reality, there are 89 consciousness. The Buddha has analyzed consciousness into 89 consciousness. In Abhidhamma, the Buddha's teaching methods were analyzing and synthesizing, because he wanted to show non-soul theory. So he analyzed consciousness. He analyzed into 89 or 121. 89 or 121 concerning the characteristics of those consciousness. Now, when the consciousness associate the consciousness associates in different worlds, like human world, heavens, Brahmaloka, in the animal world. So consciousness associates, functions, travels in different planes, worlds, universe, grounds. So concern in those association grounds, those 89 or 121 consciousness have been synthesized in 4 groups. They are known as Kamavachara, sense sphere; Rupavachara, fine material; Arupavachara, immaterial; Lokottara, supra-mundane. Can you understand now? All consciousness. First, Buddha analyzed into 89 to 121. Then, concerning the association grounds of the universe, he synthesized those consciousness, 89 or 121 consciousnesses, into 4 groups, sections. Kamavachara, sense sphere, there are 54 consciousness, sense sphere. Then Rupavachara, fine material, 15 consciousness. Then Arupavachara, immaterial, there are 12 consciousness. Then supramundane. Supramundane, they are the consciousness that it does not associate in the world, Brahmaloka, heavens or somewhere there. They don't have ground, the supramundane consciousness. They are the consciousness that create in the noble person those who attain Sovan, Sakurdagami, Anagami, Arihat. And there are 8 in number, supra-mundane. Then sense sphere, fine material, immaterial. Those consciousness connect with universe. Now, supramundane consciousness, they transcends the world, surpass the world, overcome the world, Lokottara, attain into Arahant. They create those supramundane consciousness. Then we'll take the sense sphere consciousness. There are 54 sense sphere consciousness. Before that, we have to think of the world that consciousness, those sense sphere, fine material sphere, immaterial, supramundane. What are the worlds that they associate? Now you know one system, one cluster system, galactic system has 31 world. 31 world. That is called Chakkavala. Cluster one cluster system of galactic universe. They are known as Chakkavala. In Chakkavala, there are 31 worlds. 31 worlds, 6 heavens, one human world, and 16 Rupa Brahmaloka, and 4 immaterial Brahmaloka, and 4 hills. Those are known as the 31 world. Now these consciousness except supramundane, other consciousness out of 89, they associate those worlds. Brahmaloka, fine material sphere, immaterial sphere, sense sphere, they associate those consciousness. Now we'll come to the sense sphere consciousness. There are 54 sense sphere consciousness. These sense sphere consciousness, they associate in 6 heaven and 4 hills and human world. Sense sphere consciousness, they are in 54 numbers consciousness. These 54 consciousness synthesized into 3 categories. Akusala, ahetuka, kama, soban. Akusala, unwholesome. Ahetuka, non-root. Kama, sobana, beautiful. Akusala, 12 consciousness. Non-root, 18 consciousness. And beautiful, 24 consciousness. Then first we'll take again the 12 wholesome consciousness, unwholesome consciousness. There are 12 unwholesome consciousness. Buddha analyzed those unwholesome consciousness into 12. Regarding now, you know, when person commit unwholesome activity, he engaged in this activity in different moods. This attitude towards that action or unwholesome activity is different from person to person. Now suppose killing an animal is unwholesome activity. Sometimes one people kill an animal in happy mood, to have fun, or in happy mood, or in greed to eat his meat, or he may destroy his crops. If the killer is a farmer, the animal destroys his crops. Then there arise anger. Then performing those killing activity, it is different. Attitude is different. Some do it, does it in happy mood. Other one does it in anger. Or someone does it spontaneously, just arise his consciousness and he do it. Some people does it with the motivation. There is a person to motivate him, enforce him to do it. Because of enforcing, he will do it. Now you know, powerful person, they get a weak person and enforce him to do the wrong things. Outlaws. Some people are blackmailed by the powerful persons. Such thing happens. By considering all those conditions, Buddha analyze unwholesome consciousness into 12. Somanassa sahagata, upekka sahagata, asankara, sasankara, ditthigata vipayutta, ditthigata sampayutta, in that way. Now, some people believe killing animal is a sin or unwholesome activity. It gives bad effect, result. Some people, they do not believe in karma. In that way, the Buddha analyzed this unwholesome consciousness into 12. Then he synthesized again those 12 under 3 categories called rooted in greed, lobha moolikam. Rooted in greed. Because some out of those 12 consciousness, there are 8 consciousness that arise because of greed. Because of greed, it arises. There are 8 unwholesome consciousness rooted in greed. Now, suppose person kill fish to eat their meat. They desire, they have greed to eat their meat. Then rooted in greed. Then rooted in hatred. There are 2 consciousness rooted in hatred. Some people commit unwholesome activities because of hate. Because of hate, they hurt the other person, sometimes they kill the persons. In that way, rooted in hatred. There are two. There are two consciousness. Then rooted in delusion. Moha Mulika. Moha Mulika, rooted in delusions. That is how the Buddha synthesized concerning about roots, greed, hatred, and delusion. Those are known as three roots in unwholesome consciousness. To commit unwholesome activity, there must be there must be associated one of these root, greed, hatred, delusion in unwholesome consciousness. Now, we'll take the eighth consciousness, unwholesome consciousness, rooted in greed. Rooted in greed. The Buddha analyzed them up to 8. First one is Somanassa Sahagata, Ditthigata, Sampayutta, Asankarika. That is the first consciousness rooted in greed. Somanassa Sahagata, Ditthigata, Sampayutta, Asankarika. In English term, we can say Somanassa Sahagata means joy. So the consciousness that accompanied by joy. Then Ditthigata Vippayutta, with wrong views, Mittya Ditti. Asankarika, that is with prompted motivation. Now, when person does unwholesome activity with joy, he does it in happiness, for fun. And he does it Ditthigata Sampayutta, that is bearing wrong views. He believes that killing animal is not a sin. It is not an unwholesome activity. It doesn't give any effect or result, bad result. Wrong views, Mithya and Ditti. And Asankarika means without motivation, without enforcing, spontaneously, he himself does it. There appears this first rooted in greed consciousness, one consciousness accompanied by joy, associated with wrong views, prompted. One consciousness, that is it is powerful, unwholesome consciousness. When person commit in any unwholesome activity, bearing this consciousness, this first consciousness, it is the most powerful conscious. that gives bad effects. Then second one, somanassa sahagata ditthigata sampayutta sasankarika. Asankarika becomes sasankarika. So, how can we understand this? Asankarika, sasankarika. I told you some powerful persons, they get a weaker person and he enforced to do that wrong things. In that way, with the motivation, when person does that unwholesome activity with the motivation, with the enforcement of other person, there arise the second rooted in greed consciousness. It is called one consciousness accompanied by joy, associated with wrong views and unprompted. Then the third consciousness. Now the power of giving result is the first one is the most powerful in giving result. Then second one is less than the first one. In that way, the power of giving result, it becomes less. Third one consciousness accompanied by consciousness accompanied by joy. Ditthigata vipayutta. Without wrong views, and asankarika, prompt or with spontaneous, without motivation, he himself do it. And in that way, the fourth one consciousness accompanied by joy, again, ditthigata sampayutta, without wrong views, and he does with motivation. Then we'll come to the fifth one. Fifth one is somewhat different. One consciousness accompanied by equanimity. It is accompanied by equanimity, neither joy or sad. Equanimity. He does that unwholesome activity, commit that unwholesome activity, accompanied by equanimity. Then ditthigata sampayutta and unprompted, without motivation. In that way, it goes on up to 8. Those are the 8 consciousness rooted in greed. When person commit unwholesome activity without joy or without sad, there comes the equanimity is there. In that way, the Buddha analyzed the consciousness as karma vipaka, as how to give result of karma. According to this analysis, Buddha has showed how does this effect of karma, result of karma occur. In that way, that is the 8 consciousness rooted in greed. Then we'll come to the second, next to rooted in hatred. There are 2 consciousness rooted in hatred. Somanassa sahagata dittiga patiga sampayutta asankarika. Somanassa sahagata patiga sampayutta sasankarika. Somanassa sahagata dittigata sampayutta patiga sampayutta asankarika. Somanassa means again accompanied by joy. Patiga is aversion there. Patiga, aversion is there. Patiga means there is a complete. If there is anger or hate in a person, there is conflict in doing something. So in that way, there arises 2 consciousness, Somanassa sahagata, patiga sampayutta, asankarika, Somanassa sahagata patiga sampayutta, sasankarika. So, how can we understand these 2 consciousness? Somanassa means joy. The person do harmful thing to other person with joy and without motivation of other person, without enforcing. And then there arises that consciousness, one consciousness accompanied by displeasure or aversion. Displeasure or aversion, then he spontaneously does it. Then the second one, that is sasankarika, it is prompted or with motivation. With motivation, he does it. Then rooted in delusion, will come to the second, then another second consciousness, delusion. These consciousnesses as upekka sahagata, Vichikitya sampayutta asankarika upekka sahagata uddatta sampayutta sasankarika. One consciousness accompanied by equanimity. There is no joy or happiness or sad because of delusion. What is delusion? Delusion is ignorance. Without knowing the real sense, without understanding, without having the real understanding. So in that way, Buddha has explained those two consciousness rooted in illusions. When people do some things, some activities, misunderstand. With ignorance, they commit so many activities. In such cases, we can understand that in such person there arises those consciousness rooted in delusions. Now, those are the 12 unwholesome consciousness when a person commit in unwholesome activity, rooted in greed, rooted in hatred, and rooted in delusions. Now, there are other 18 wholesome, non-rooted and beautiful. The other 18 rootless consciousness there. Now I told you 54 sphere consciousness have been synthesized in 3 groups: unwholesome 12, 18 rootless 18, and beautiful 24. Now we'll take the 18 rootless consciousness, non-root. So why they call non-root? Because those consciousness do not have roots of unwholesome, greed, hate, or delusion. That's why they are called non-rooted or rootless. Rootless consciousness, there are 18. Buddha has analyzed those 18 consciousnesses. Then he synthesized into 3: unwholesome, result, wholesome, resultant, and functional. Unwholesome resultant 7, wholesome resultant 8, and functional resultant 3 altogether 18. I think the time is up now. So we have to stop the lesson with this. In next lessons, we can discuss from this 18 rootless consciousness. Anyway, I try to explain you those consciousnesses. You have to by heart those consciousness. Now, take 89 consciousness. They are divided into 4 in that way. You have to by heart, or you have to keep in your mind those consciousness in your mind, and then you can easily follow the Abhidhamma class, sense sphere, fine material, immaterial, supramundane. In that way, you have to keep in your mind the number of consciousness and how they synthesized, how they analyze. In that way, you have to keep in mind. Then up to unwholesome activities, we took one by one. The rooted in greed consciousness, we took one by one. Somanasa sahagata, ditthigata, sampayutta, asankarika. One consciousness accompanied by joy, associated with wrong views, unprompted. Like that, we analyzed those 8 consciousness. So you have to keep in your mind the Pali versions and also the English term. Now, shall we stop our lesson with this? Thank you very much for listening to me. Blessing of the triple gems be showered upon you. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation.
Thank you, and much merit to you, Most Reverend, Most Venerable Bulwala Rattanasiri Thero. And thank you very much, dear Dhamma listeners, for your patience and attentiveness. If you do have a question, you can scan the QR code that appears on the screen, and you can send in your questions, and we will be able to respond either to the email address you provide, or in a class, in a future class like this. We do have a question asking whether the Pali words can be released to be recited. Yes, we can do that. So I will work with our esteemed teacher to put the Pali words into the presentation. So we can definitely do that. So if there are any questions that you would like to raise right now on what was delivered today, or even in our first session, you are welcome to ask. do not have any questions on our Google form or on YouTube. So if the participants within the Zoom session have no questions, we can end today's session. I once again ask, if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, you're most welcome. And oh, there is one question, Reverend Sir. The question is it possible to convert unwholesome to wholesome?
Is it possible to convert unwholesome into wholesome?
Yes.
What does it mean now? Convert wholesome.
Mr.
The question is not clear for me.
Okay, right. The question is just typed here in Zoom chat. So we do have the listener here as well. Would you like to expand on your question so we can give a proper answer to it? This is directed to Mr. Vijay. Is it possible, you have asked, is it possible to convert unwholesome to wholesome? My understanding is that we could have wholesome thoughts or consciousnesses, and we could have unwholesome consciousnesses, and they will rise up either based on the three roots, or
now I can say wholesome is more powerful than unwholesome. The wholesome means the definition has been given in Dhammasangani. Wholesome in the sense that cut unwholesome. Wholesome can suppress unwholesome. That's why when we commit wholesome activity, then we can reduce the bad result of the unwholesome. Not completely, in somewhat we can suppress the unwholesome activity with the wholesome activity. By performing a lot of wholesome activities, we can do it. In another way, I can say you, in Vitakka Santana Sutta, they say unwholesome vitakka or thoughts can be removed out with the wholesome vitakka. That is the functions of wholesome. So convert means completely changing, but we can suppress or we can reduce the bad result of unwholesome by doing a lot of wholesome activities.
it is by training ourselves.
Yes, it is by training ourselves.
Right. Thank you so much, Reverend Sir. We do have two more questions. Mr. Jayesh had raised his hand. Do you want to unmute your microphone and then speak or ask your question?
Madam.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question in the Banteji, like that whenever we are in a born, means after the pregnancy of the woman, the child is came out and born. So at that time, the consciousness is there, or how we can feel like that, or after the growing of some age, the consciousness is come in a picture.
Again, question
the question
because of the language problem.
All right, let me, so this is what I understood. So he's typed it here as well. So the consciousness, does it arise when the child is born or before that?
That's the question, no?
Yes.
When the child is born,
Born as in the sense when it
Yes,
comes
in
out
the
of the
same.
mother, or when it is inside the womb?
No, inside mother. Inside mother. In the womb, the consciousness is there in the womb of the child. It is born in the womb, inside the mother. That is the beginning, embryo.
In the embryo.
Yes,
Okay.
embryo.
In the embryo, not even in the fetus, but way before that.
Yes, madam, but in that sense, my question is right that we don't memorize the childhood time memories, and so that the consciousness with the awareness of the moment or in the sense. So why can't not memorize the childhood or birthness, all the scenario?
Okay, right.
That is the special way of wisdom called Pubbhe Nivasanussati Jnana. If we create that jnana, wisdom, we can see all those stages. Without that knowledge, we can't memorize or we can't think of those form stages. That is the thing. Buddha and other noble ones, they have developed that Pubbhe Nivasanussati Jnana, that they can see the former lives past. That is the wisdom, special wisdom. We have to develop that wisdom. Without that wisdom, we can't do it. Once in a way, some children, sometimes they say about their former life for some time, but they forget that thing.
So, in other words, what my understanding is that we don't necessarily remember everything that happens in our current life. So in order to have that memory, or some people call it photographic memory, or the things that we experience, if there needs to be a special wisdom developed if we are to remember every moment in our life. Is that what Reverend Sir was trying to explain?
Yes. That's the thing.
Mr. Jayesh, is that clear enough, or do you have further questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you, Bhanteji.
We do have another question. The meaning of Somanassa Sahagata and Sampayutta. There are two.
Somanassa Sahagata means joy, happiness. He does that activity in happy mood. Joy, happiness, happy mood. Sampayutta means association with that, with wrong views or with right views. Sampayutta.
All right. Thank you so much for your questions today, and thank you so much for being with us, and much merit to you, Reverend Sir, for our Abhidhamma class today. And interestingly, unfortunately, we were not able to hold the class yesterday because we had an unfortunate power failure issue in the country. But the Vitakka Santana Sutta will be the topic for our next Sutta class on Friday next week. So if you're available, do come in to listen to that. So with that, much merit to all our listeners. And thank you very much for attending the Abhidhamma class. Much merit to you once again, Most Venerable Bulwala Ratana Siritero. So we will end today's session now.
Yes, thank you very much.